When you say Emily Dickinson and theater, what most people think about is Belle of Amherst. That's a very famous play about Emily Dickinson, and Julie Harris was in it, and people loved it. And it was all about Emily as kind of quirky and eccentric spinster, who had these kind of imaginary, um, or mostly in her head, relationships with men. And, it was just a kind of a quaint Victorian, quirky spinster who didn't know much about life and kind of accidentally wrote brilliant poems. And of course, the poems that are highlighted are not the more deeper, complex ones. And and of course, Belle of Amherst is an old play. It's been around for a long time. But now we have the letters that she wrote to Sue Gilbert, who married her brother and moved next door. And we realize that Emily Dickinson had a very passionate lesbian attachment to Susan Gilbert, and it went on for 4 decades. It, you know, and because Susan lived next door, it was very, very intimate. Um, so I wanted to write Emily and Sue in order to put the lesbianism back into the record, specifically in theater. And also, I wanted to add something else, which is I believe that that there's a lot in her writing and her life that supports reading her as a person who suffered from epilepsy. Again, I think there's this, oh, well, because she's a frustrated spinster and it was the Victorian era, she was always having nervous breakdowns. I think that trivializes her. And if you look at her life and you look at what she actually wrote, she described very graphically what sound to me like, epileptic seizures, episodes that she experiences as dying and coming back from death. And she talks about not being able to think, in sort of a post-seizure brain fog repeatedly. And also that from early on she had serious issues with God, and specifically talks about having some kind of physical episode where she's in great distress and Jesus apparently can't find the house. On the other hand, in the poem, she notes that Susan Gilbert does. And she, yeah, she's very aggressive in stating that her lesbian passion for Susan supplants religion, Christian religion. So anyway, I wanted to do a play that doesn't really interpret. It's all her own writing. It's excerpts from her letters to Susan and as well as poems. So that's Emily and Sue. And we are raising money to take this show on the road. We are going to the largest LGBT off Broadway festival in New York, and that's going to take some money for travel. And we're interested in touring it around the Northeast. So please, please donate, because it is this erasure of lesbians that one of the greatest poets, and arguably the greatest poet in American literature, was lesbian and also disabled. Let's put our story back into the canon. And we all know there's a lot of resistance to that. And that's why we have to step up and we have to put our money where our mouth is. And when we talk about all these young people, destroying themselves physically and emotionally because of homophobia, a lot of it starts with the erasure of these role models, to know that the greatest woman athlete or the greatest poet, so many of the brilliant writers and the performers were lesbian and today are lesbian. That's what has to change. And it's going to change when you pull out your checkbook or actually go to PayPal. So please step up financially and help support the touring production of Emily and Sue. Thank you.